Hello there, thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Ariel, I go by Ari, and I wanted to start a series on this channel, just going over the basic influences of the planets that are in our solar system. It's something that I've been studying for quite some time along with astrology, and astrology's played a major role as far as me growing, me healing, me transforming, and me actually being able to take a look and manifest what I want and what I desire out of life. It's changed my perspective and it's changed my thinking. So once I got to a certain point, it's something that I started to get heavily on my spirit to just come out and share my experience, share the knowledge that I know, start networking with other individuals as well to gather any information that I could, because this is still a journey that I'm ongoing with. Of course, I'm not perfect, but astrology again has just played a major part in me growing, and I really want to do this video, do this series, because again, I just want to share my knowledge and understanding, and hoping to share some new perspectives onto people's lives, especially with everything that's going on in the world today, what goes on in the heavens with the planets out there in space has a direct effect on what happens and what manifests into the physical world. So me studying astrology, me studying my natal chart, which is basically if you want to think of it as like a timestamp, what was going on with the planets, the exact moment of my birth, me studying that has helped me to understand myself, and I mean fully. So I've been rediscovering myself over the past few years while studying this. Parts that I really didn't know that I kind of locked away, because basically people just, it's kind of normal. You know, we grow up as children, and we're told what to do, what's good and what's bad, and that just conditions us. So naturally what we do is we lock away these parts, and that just kind of really creates self-hate subconsciously. And then what ends up happening is we project those fears, any insecurities that we have, or any parts of ourselves that we have not accepted, we project it onto other people. And projection is really a big phenomenon. So that's another video though. So again, this video is just going to be more so focused on the planets. Alright, so starting with again Mercury, some basic facts. As a lot of you know, it's the first planet from the sun. Instead of the 365 days that it takes for the Earth to revolve around the sun, it actually only takes Mercury 88, because it's so close and its orbit is a lot smaller than Earth's. Mercury is also the second smallest planet next to Pluto. Not only that, but the earliest known documentation of Mercury actually goes back to 3000 BC, because it was actually discovered by the Sumerians. The Sumerians are the people who really discovered astrology. They found the constellations, they mapped them out, and then that's what really now what we study is off of that first documentation. And then of course other cultures found them and studied them as well, but Sumerians are the earliest proven documented of the planets. Now Mercury, if you're familiar with Greek mythology, the most common known is Hermes. Hermes was the messenger of the gods, and that he is also sent to represent Mercury. So that being said, Mercury is the planet of communication and intelligence. So what that means is basically Mercury is in charge of the thought process, how we take in information, how we interpret it, how we separate it, how we process it, and then also it is in charge of communication. So then at that point, after we've had our thoughts, we've processed them, it's then going to be in charge of how we communicate and convey that information to others. And this can be communication to directly other people, or it could be communication through social sites, it could be newspapers, it could be magazines. Those are forms of communication as well. Because Mercury, again, is a planet of communication, it also goes into small details as far as being in charge of your handwriting, your body parts, so your fingertips, your hands, your arms, and really the big one is your nervous system. Your nervous system, of course, is the communication system in your body. So Mercury has a very strong influence of that, as well as if you're considering the physical part of it. Now, what Mercury also is in charge of is basically it's going to give a lot of clues to what specific details a person will pay attention to specifically when they're getting information, and it's going to also give details on what they're going to ignore. So sometimes that can basically mean that sometimes one person may be just so really concerned with the details, but they're missing the bigger picture. Or depending on where Mercury falls in one's natal chart, or depending on what the current transits are doing, and then what Mercury's current position, that can also affect the world as a collective. So how are we going to, at any point in time, take information and process it and then exchange it with other people, our communities, our family, our loved ones, or just the world? What it's going to do basically when it comes to one's chart, their natal chart, which is basically a timestamp from when you are born into the physical world, basically what that will do is it will be in charge of that person's thought process. It's going to be in charge of the specific details that an individual pays attention to, and it's also going to give very good clues as to what details they choose to ignore. That goes hand in hand with how we communicate. There are some things in this reality that some people, they just have a hard time digesting, and Mercury is going to give very good clues with that. Not only is it going to give good clues as far as what information we choose to ignore, what information we choose to actually pay attention to, but at that point, what it's going to also do is it's going to basically tell us how that person deals with information. So what that's going to basically do as far as in one's chart, just to give a real quick example, again, I could be here all day if I go through all the different positions and aspects. But basically, say for example, if Mercury falls within a water sign, let's just say Cancer. Cancer is a very emotional driven sign. And which isn't a bad thing, but as far as Mercury, what that could basically tell us is that that person will think with their emotions. They're going to be emotionally driven and start there first before they make their decision. That's just as an example, and I won't go too deep into it. Mercury also rules the voice. So in terms of the chart, again, if someone has a very strong Mercury influence, these people are mostly very, very successful at public speaking. So they have no problem with that. They can really reach out and really know how to speak and address all types of people. People with a very prominent Mercury in their chart, they also can be very successful singers, or they can also be good actors. This is just really, again, Mercury, because it's a communicator, it's in charge of communication. It's going to really help that person, that individual, like I said, just really know how to address and come out and touch and speak to any individual. Now, someone who also has a very, very strong Mercury influence in their chart, some sides of that can be, they can be really sly, they can be very sarcastic, and they can be superficial, if you want to think of it that way. They can be very, very, very critical because they're always thinking, paying attention to the details. So they're either always going to have something to say, they're great debaters, they have a knack for debate. So you think you made your point across with someone that has a strong Mercury influence, you said your point, but then they come back with a rebuttal, and you address it again, and they have something else to say. They're always constantly thinking because of that strong Mercury influence, with that being the planet of intelligence. It's that planet is basically giving that person, if you want to think of it as kind of like a superpower, they have great powers to think and process things. People that have a strong Mercury influence also are known to be teachers, reporters. They like to transmit that information. Now, Mercury itself, if we're thinking about zodiac signs, Mercury rules 2 zodiac signs. It rules Gemini and Virgo. So if you know about Geminis, Geminis always have something to say. Geminis always have something to say, but they have good intentions behind it when they're vibrating high. They are the teachers of the zodiac sign, and because they are ruled by Mercury. Mercury is what controls that sign. Well, not controls it, but it's where that planet feels like it's at home. So basically, say for example, if Mercury falls into the sign of Gemini or Virgo in your chart, it's gonna feel so comfortable. Of course, it's gonna be itself as far as have that objective, or be itself as far as a communication and an intelligence. But when it gets back to Gemini or Virgo, man, it is like really itself. Just like think about how you are when you're at home. You know, sometimes you go to people's houses, kind of reserved a little bit. You don't want to mess anything up. You want to be a nice guest. But when you go home, you're yourself. You kick back. You're totally open. That's how Mercury feels in Gemini and Virgo. So if you want to kind of tie that to the association, as far as we know, Gemini's loves to talk. We know Virgos are very detailed and very structured. So that really just, that can be a great example as far as, again, Mercury influencing influencing the signs based off their rulership. Now, also because Mercury is in charge of the thought process, it's also going to be in charge of how that person comes up with ideas. So it's not just going to be in charge of communication coming in and out. Again, it's over your intellect. So it's going to be in charge, and it's kind of considered like the focusing lens of one's creativity. We show how a person directs that creative energy. So again, it's that focusing lens on how they want to direct their ideas and how they want to bring them into fruition. One last quick thing that I want to say about Mercury, as a lot of you know, what the very famous Mercury Retrograde, because it has to deal with, because the planet of Mercury deals with communication and intelligence. That's a lot of the time why, you know, when Mercury retrograde is going on, sometimes you might have car problems because, of course, car is a method of how we get around. It's used to ultimately communicate, to be honest. Sometimes you have to get up and go to someone to make a deal or, you know, communicate, talk to them. So sometimes it might affect your car. Sometimes you may lose things, but it's really you're not losing anything. It's just Mercury in retrograde kind of messing with your brain so you can't remember. Mercury is also in charge of memory. So basically, you know, when Mercury retrograde is coming on, what that basically means is the planet, it's not really moving backwards. That's a lot of people sometimes will say, but it has that appearance because it's basically just means it's not going in the same direction, the same movement as the other planets. So it will appear to be stagnant or appear to be moving backwards. But what that just basically means is during a Mercury retrograde, because it's a planet of intelligence and communication, it's going to halt those things. So when Mercury retrograde pops around, I know we all kind of fear it sometimes. I know I do sometimes. It depends on what's going on. But I know we all fear it, but it's really not here to scare us. It's not here to, you know, to be fearful of every time it comes around, because it comes around quite often. It's about every 3 to 4 months, I believe. But basically the reason why things can kind of get really crazy with Mercury retrograde is because it's halting communications. It can kind of make them sometimes very difficult, and that could be for a reason. You know, the universe sometimes will send you signs, and it will do things to get you to pay attention. And of course, with this type of world, you know, we're always wanting everything so fast. We're the microwave generation. We want it now. So Mercury retrograde comes around. It's like, all right, hey, slow down. Let's really go back to that time where you felt this way about something, and let's address it. Let's figure out why that made you so upset. Let's figure out why you responded to it that way. That's what Mercury retrograde is for. It's for you to take a few moments, slow down, reflect about that difficult time or that concerning moment, and you need to persevere through it. You want to push through it. Mercury retrograde is here for you to deal with those things and to help you elevate. It's not here to just make you lose your keys and have your car break down or have your cell phone keep dropping the signal every 2 minutes. I'm not going to say any brands, but we all know. But in a nutshell, that's basically why when Mercury retrograde comes around, why those type of things happen is because basically that's Mercury taking a time out, and it's giving us a time out say, let's think about this. We need to go back. I don't really like the way I processed that the first time. Let's think about it again. And I know sometimes, we people, we want to just move past things because we don't have time. I mean, I know most of us are parents or we just have busy lifestyles, so we're so quick to sometimes when things happen that, maybe you don't feel a certain good way about. You initially want to be like, well, wait a minute. But then sometimes you're like, I'll deal with it later. I've got to go do this, that, and the other. It happens quite a lot. So I like to think, me changing my perspective, I like to think as Mercury retrograde as that timeout that's given by the universe, and it's making me aware of the situations that I need to address. And I don't know about anyone else. If you're on a healing journey, or if you're just on a journey to wholeness, or you want to change your thinking, you're tired of the way things are going, you're tired of being the victim all the time or playing the victim, whatever you want to say. But me personally, I want to get over this stuff. I started to notice a lot of patterns that I was repeating. That's really also one of the main reasons why I got into astrology. I started to be consciously aware that I was repeatedly going through the same stuff over and over again. And basically what has happened is me changing my perspective, me welcoming those challenges that come up, that present, some irritation that maybe I just hadn't paid attention to the first time. It allows me to really slow down and process it. And those really can just be looked at as lessons. It doesn't have to be looked at as an inconvenience. If you change your perspective and look at it in a good way, you're in turn really changing your lifestyle and you're changing your life. So I hope that this video was informative. Again, it's just some quick facts that I wanted to put together. I'm going to be doing more series. Next we're going to do Venus, of course. It's the next planet up. Again, you'll definitely want to stay tuned to this series. There will be an announcement at the end. I will have a contest. And if you have any questions too, feel free to message me. To be honest, I love talking about astrology. If you haven't noticed, I'm not sure if anyone's watched my stories on my social sites, but I love talking about astrology. I love it. Again, it's something that's been on my heart for quite some time. I know the changes that it's made for me personally in my life. I'm not coming here to say how perfect I am, because I am not. I have ways to go. But with me just having this basic understanding of, again, myself, finding these parts of myself, understanding that there is a science to astrology. There is a science to it. Understanding that and continuously just pouring myself into it, I'm just really falling in love with myself, and I wanted to share that. I wanted people to know, if you're struggling with something, if you feel like, maybe you start off with, getting better from whatever you went through, and then maybe you hit a wall and it's a repeated wall. I would love for anyone to, if you have any questions, just reach out to me. Sometimes you just need someone to talk to. You just need someone to share their perspective, and I love doing that. So I know a few people sometimes in my stories ask me questions. I welcome it. Don't think you're bugging me. Literally my eyes light up when I have a question on this. So just shoot me a question. I'm going to put my social sites down in the description. And again, stay tuned. Venus is up next. And again, my name is Ariel, and thank you for tuning in.